running an agency doesn't have to feel like juggling flaming chainsaws. At Schmidt Consulting Group, we help you ditch the chaos, land more clients, and even enjoy running your business again. No fluff, no BS, just strategies that actually work. Check us out at schmidtconsulting.group because your agency deserves better.
Join host Kurt Schmidt as he sits down with Chris Dubois, agency coach and founder of Dynamic Agency OS, to uncover the secrets behind agency growth, finding your niche, building a strong culture, and thriving in a competitive market.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schmidt List. I'm your host, Kurt Schmidt. I am excited for today's show. We're not going to do a lot of big fanfare. We're going to jump in and talk to my buddy, Chris. Chris and I have known each other for quite a while, and he's got a really interesting story, and I want you to listen in. So let's jump in and meet with Chris right now. Chris, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. How are you, Kurt?
I am doing great now that you're here, so thanks for joining me. So, Chris, tell me a little bit about your journey. Tell me what you're doing these days, who you're working with, and then tell me a little bit about how we got here.
Yeah, because the journey I definitely did not expect to get here. So right now, I coach marketing agencies with the Dynamic Agency OS, which is a positioning operating system, and really just helping agencies find their niche, find their positioning. We create some compelling offers, and then I help them with setting up a marketing strategy so that they can move away from needing referrals so much and just actually run their own business, have some control over something.
Yeah. So tell me about your journey in the agency space. Were you a young man thinking, boy, I can't wait to join an agency and eventually start coaching them? Was that the goal all the time, or how did we end up here?
Yeah, it was, I went to college for English, and I did what most English majors do, and I went into the Army. I became an infantry officer, did that active duty for 7 years, and got to do all the fun exploring different places and having a blast. Interestingly, a lot of the, skills, the things that you acquire on a military resume were a little less exciting for the business world. And we knew we wanted to come back to Maine. I found a job at a remote agency, which in 2019 was surprising. Remote, all remote, doing this. And so I went from almost never being home to being home all the time. I'm sure my family had some questions. I started as a marketer. I did that for about 9 months and then became head of operations, did that for a couple of years and then became CEO. And after doing that for a while, I needed something else. And so I realized I can help agencies. I can just do everything that we're doing successful. I can go share with everybody else. And so, at no point was I don't know that I even thought about the agency world until I was like, hey, a job opportunity. Look at that.
Yeah. I mean, myself, I started my first business when I was like 19 and really enjoyed the scrappy nature of that. But in order to fit in with what my parents thought was successful, I joined a very large corporation, actually one of the biggest in the country, and quickly found out I was never meant for the Navy. I was always going to be a pirate. It was the agency life for me, and went to a small agency, helped them grow, and ever since then, that's what I've been doing. Talk to me a little bit about the people you're working with. So we're in 2025, or we're wrapping up 2025 here. We are recording this in the last quarter, and I'm wondering, Chris, what's this been year like for agency folks, and what have you been thinking about this year in terms of the support and needs that they have?
Yeah, it's a loaded question.
But that's all I've got is loaded questions, Chris. So just prepare yourself.
Fire away.
Yeah.
I think so. Again, most of the agencies that I'm working with come to me because they've been reliant on referrals for a long time, and I've had some agencies that have made it to almost 3 million. And they did it purely based on referrals. At some point, those dry up just the markets are shifting. And they realize I have no way to actually market my own business. Mm-hmm. So we start having the conversations and we figure out what could we actually do here to get you there. And I'm sure you've seen the same thing. It's often that they just don't have a strong niche, which is at this point mandatory. But then separate from that, they don't have a strong position and they don't have a perspective on how do they view the world. And so there's nothing for anyone to even care about. And it's kind of been where I spend all my time in that. And then we create offers based off that. Because I think it's often missed that your positioning is more than just how you talk about things. It's your strategy for your whole business.
Yeah.
And if this is important to you, it means your offer is going to show up in the way. It means the way you're messaging on social media, the way you're engaging with your clients, right? Everything is going to show up differently. And that's what separates you from the competition. So you can actually be different. You're not just saying the same things as everybody else.
Yeah, and it's not endemic to just agencies. I see a lot of other companies that struggle with this too. But I would say in a product-based world, which is what we live in, everything is built around selling units or SKUs versus services. You can see that in the tools that we have on offer for agencies or service-based companies. A lot of them build a lot around product things, and they're not purposefully made for people that sell services as their main thing. So what I see is that it happens a lot in service-based businesses because there's a need and I can go and do that thing. And sometimes people will turn around and they'll have 40, 50 people on staff, and you ask them, why are you doing what you're doing? And they're like, because there's a need. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but
Yeah,
what are you trying to do with this? I see it at my agency. We built a lot of SaaS products and things during the time that I was running that agency. And people would come in and be like, I'm doing this dating app or whatever it was because the world of dating is so bad and I'm going to change that world. Or people would be like, I've got this agriculture need for the way that we do smart maps for people that are plowing fields and things like that. And it's going to change those farmers' lives and all these things. And with these products, it seems because of this almost physical manifestation of it, like it's this thing I can slot in here that solves this gap. Whereas an agency doesn't really, they're looking at the whole wall and being like, look, there's lots of gaps. I'll just fill them all. And I'm here because the wall exists, not because I'm trying to be a specific person that fills a specific gap. And so it goes back to something I hear you talk about, like the idea of niching down and things like that and why that's important. So with all that being said, why do you think that is? Why is it that, from your opinion, why is it so difficult to pick a lane?
Yeah. So on the niching piece, everybody's scared, right? Like if I say no to all these people, like it's going to happen. And they're coming from a scarcity mindset. I've done math with some clients that were like, I had one client who wanted to run a just like national market. I want to hit everybody selling SEO services. It's okay, we can do that. But you're already ranking number one for SEO in your city. So what we were just look at the types of companies you like working with. And I pulled up some Chamber of Commerce information. We did the math and said, okay, 5% of the market is currently buying, right? 5 rule. So let's take 5% of those companies that you want to work with. And let's just assume you have 3% of those is like what you're able to win. Ran the math, you could be a $6 million agency. How does that sound to you? And he said, whoa, that's huge. Yeah, and all you'd have to do is go knock on the doors in your local community for the people that already know you. Do we want to do that or do we want to go everywhere? And I think a lot of times it's stuck in that niching of that mindset of, oh, but I'm going to say no to so many people. So, yeah, you can also just say yes to them. If someone comes to you that isn't a fit, it's okay to say, yeah, I do want to work with you. Like you actually have the problem I solve. I think I can help you. And now a deliberate decision rather than I have to accept everybody who comes to me because I don't actually have enough business coming in to make this work. And yeah, sure, you are seeing similar things because everyone who works with agencies has said something similar to that. But I don't know, are you seeing anything else?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it goes back to like my thing about the product thing, right? Because if I'm a business that makes water pumps and somebody shows up and says, can you make a train engine? Like it's easy to say no, right? Because I'm like, I just can't do that. But as a services industry, you're always like, we do SEO, so why couldn't we do Facebook ads? Or we do Facebook ads, so why couldn't we do viral TikTok videos or things like that? The leap between the services you offer on the surface sometimes doesn't feel like much. But what I've also seen is a lot of agencies build multiple businesses within an agency. One of my clients, for example, they do strategy, they do digital, and then they do like interior stuff, like physical, digital stuff. And each person they're selling to is a very different buyer. And they don't have a strategy for each individual one. And if you were to put a strategy in each individual one, you look at the amount of energy and money and investment that would have to go into building 3 different marketing go-to-market strategies for one business inside of it. Like it all just collapses on itself very quickly because it's that's not sustainable. Now, the people that might be listening to this, there's lots of boutique lifestyle agencies out there. And I think those are great. Where, a UX agency in town here, they've been around for 20 years or so, and it's just 7 people. And it's always been 7 people. And if work came in and they didn't have enough bandwidth to do it, they just said no. And that was it. But this was a group of people that weren't trying to build a business. They were trying not to get a job. And when agencies start with a place with the mindset of, I don't want to get a job versus I don't want to build a sustainable business or things like that, that's where already you're starting behind the block. So, Chris, if I'm listening to this, how do I choose my positioning? Because there's the type of work I like to do, and then there's the type of people and type of projects I want to work on. What if maybe those things don't align, or what if they do, but I don't know how to talk about them? Where do I start with this?
Yeah, separate niche and positioning. Right,
Yeah.
with niche being the people that we're targeting, positioning being how we're seen. They're both required. They rely on each other. But I would start with whichever one you feel better about right now. There are some agency owners who are already embedded into a marketplace. They were engineers, so they know engineers. One of the easiest ways to fail as an agency is to pick a lane and then not have market access. You can't talk to the people who you need to sell to. You have to hunt them down, and it's just impossible. You don't know anyone. You could just get on the phone right now and say, hey, can you introduce me to one of these people? Like, it is not an area you should be playing. And so for those people, I would actually focus on your positioning and say, how do I want to be seen? Let me start there. But if you already know people, obviously start with your niche because you have people you can talk to, and then say, how do I want to be seen by those people who already know me? Do I want to be the reliable agency? Do I want to be the fast agency? Find whatever that word is that you really want to anchor to. And then that's what drives your strategy for that. But a lot of times it's just figuring out, like my current clients say, they appreciate how I over communicate things because it means they're always on the same page. They're good with that. And so I need to find the people who care the most about that. Like that is something that they like. Because when I'm doing my content, when I'm doing all these different things, that's going to come out and it's going to attract the people who care about that type of thing. That's probably a bad example because I don't know that a lot of people care about over communicating on LinkedIn, but it could be anything else, right? Speed is probably the easiest one where it's like, we care about moving fast over anything. We would rather test things, break things, right? Test very fast, just move very quickly so we can see what works and we can get you the best result we can. If that resonates with you, you are the agency you want to work with. And yeah, I think to start, right? Do I have market access or do I have a way that I really need to be known because my values are super strong here, or I'm already doing something that's just natural to me to stand out? And then I'll just go from there.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's funny because with some of these business owners, I'll bring up other examples of different businesses. And it's funny how contrarian some of these folks can get because they're like, I don't want to be, I'm like, do you want to be like the Cheesecake Factory or do you want to be more this niche thing? And at this point, the Cheesecake Factory is a meme unto itself. And but they don't care. They've already leaned into it. They've carved out their niche, which is I have a billion things on menu. But for me, like I look at when you're building, and I have a lot of, it's not just agencies that'll listen to this show, it's coaches and people that are working in businesses that are maybe entrepreneurial curious. And a lot of people have a hard time taking that first step. And again, when I say that first step, I don't mean just like starting a business. I work with some agencies that have 80, 100 people in them. And that first step is still scary to them about making because it's like you feel like you're pouring cement. And you're like, once it solidifies, there's no going back. And how do I get over that mindset, Chris?
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? I like how David C. Baker frames this. Your positioning is about who you seek, not who you accept. And so when we all know positioning is like, wait, you don't just, this is who I am and everybody wants to buy from you right away. It takes time to actually build up that reputation to get there. But you have to know that like through that process, you're going to be attracting still the same business by shifting to a new position. You're not cutting off everything. Nick Bennett from Duo Consulting has a good way, and I'm probably going to butcher this. I can't remember the first part, but it's like you're not doing this guillotine method of just cutting off everything and saying, this is our new positioning. It's like you're slowly just crossing this gap and adding things. And so something I'll have a lot of clients try when they're super resistant to this is building a landing page for their new positioning. It could even just replicate their home page, but it really has tight positioning around how they want to be seen. And we run that and just start pushing people there and seeing how that works. And usually seeing people convert on that landing page is enough to give them the confidence of this is a good decision. And so they can slowly start rolling that out without having to fully commit. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's like tons of opportunities to do that.
Yeah, I like that you said it's about who you seek. And how do you help people, Chris, think about that? Do you think about market size, opportunity? What are some of the things that you coach people on to be thinking about when they're choosing that space?
Yeah. The first step, you have to like the people. I think that often goes missed. You're going to be, right? But I've had people who like 2 years in to their agency are like, oh, you know what? I actually hate meeting with these clients. That's a problem, right? Because you're in meetings with them daily. You're going to conferences. You're talking to them on social media. If you don't like these people, I would not even bother. Ideally, in a TAM that's growing, because if it's shrinking, your life is just going to continuously get harder. I would be looking for whether they have money or not. Surprisingly, there are a lot of agencies that choose to serve audiences that don't have a lot of extra capital. One that has come up multiple times is people who want to do podcast editing for personal podcasts. And I don't think people realize that business podcasts rarely make money.
Yeah,
right. Not everybody is Rogan and all these other big names.
Yeah, there's a big gap.
And so for most businesses, it's actually a business investment where they're saying, I want to spend money on this because I know it'll be business on the back end. A personal podcast, it's not bringing in money, right? And so someone would have to say, my personal reputation, like my clout, is important enough that I want to spend money on someone building this, which probably won't happen.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they need to have money for sure.
Yep.
Those are probably the big ones. You should have fun working with them too, right? Separate from just like liking them, but you should enjoy it, get excited to go to work.
Yeah. When people struggle with this, I really try to back them into, let's start with what we don't want to be doing too. Because if you can't decide what you want to do, let's start with what you don't want. So like when we launched Foundry, I was talking with the partners and they were struggling with trying to figure out who they wanted to attract. And I was like, all right, let's start with who we don't want to work with. And that list came together pretty quick. And so that helped a lot narrow down what we were going to start to focus on. And then it made it really easy to start telling the employees and then start building a culture around that. And all those things stemmed from those early decisions being made, right? Because I'll see that in sometimes when I'm working with some of these larger agencies and the culture is a little wonky, you can almost pull a string to chase it back to why are we here? And if why are we here is to build stuff and go home, then you don't be surprised if the culture of the place is a little off. Is that something you've also seen where founders have maybe said, what's going on with my team, Chris? Why are they not getting it? Why didn't they get it?
Yep. And that comes across probably more than one would think.
Yeah.
The agency founders, I think, are so it's like change is a norm in the agency founder. It's like you want to be continuously looking. The team does not feel that. And so a lot of the time, just by having a team, they are quickly being overwhelmed by the amount of changes the agency owner wants, and they feel that. And so even if you don't, as the owner, don't feel like you've made a bunch of changes recently, there probably are a bunch of things your team's like, okay, this is a job, right? This is not the thing. And so one of the exercises I go through with clients right at the start, like the first thing we do, is I call it agency design. And it's just, let's just model out, what do you want your agency to look like so that we can build towards that? Because if you tell me you don't want anyone working more than 30 hours a week, because that's just, you want to have more of a style business, we're going to build your agency much differently than if you were to say, I just want to grow as fast as possible right now. And so I think aligning on the goal, like where do we want to go? So now we can actually draw the map to it. It's pretty important. But yeah, I think a lot of teams the owners have never gone through that type of exercise in order to know where they want to take everyone. So the team is just kind of along for the ride and they don't know where they're going.
Yep. Because when you're building the agency, or even if it's a consultancy or any kind of service-based business, as you're growing, your first thing is I got to get invoicing down. Like obviously I got to get cash flow figured out, but then utilization starts to rear its ugly head, right? Like how much juice for the squeeze am I getting here? Right. And that's when I start seeing people start to really lean into, in my mind, what the easiest stuff is, like all the math and things behind it, when a lot of it is culturally a thing. Utilization is not just how much people track their time, but it's like, why are they tracking their time? Why do they think it's important? How does it affect them directly? Do they understand that? I worked at an agency where you basically had whenever you logged into the main system, it had your utilization number sitting right there when you logged in. It would tell you how you're doing. And I think from a leadership standpoint, that was great because it motivated people to get their timesheets done and fill that in so that number would get to what was considered an acceptable rate too, right? But that kind of incentive also drives people to do things to game the system as well. So while you might be thinking that's great, and again, that's just one example. I see this happening with things like Salesforce. A big company will come in and be like, all right, sales team, you're all in Salesforce now, and you're all reporting into Salesforce, and we're tracking all these numbers and things. And then you find that, first of all, a lot of Salesforce implementations don't work very well. You'll find that about after the first year, you're lucky if you get maybe 40, 50% of the entire sales team engaging on it on a regular basis. And then after that first year, the leadership team finds out that nobody's doing that as much. So they freak out and they have a bunch of meetings, and then that utilization of the tool will shoot up, but the data will not be something super accurate. So again, it goes back to that cultural aspect of it. And if you don't work towards that intentionally, I think that's the hard part about the business side of it, is that you've got to keep track of the numbers, but you also have to keep track of how people feel about what they're doing in the numbers, your clients, your employees, all those different things. How have you been able to balance that in the past, Chris? Like, how do you know what to focus on when?
So your culture is, I learned this through the Army. The only thing that the owner of a company or the leader of the organization like truly owns is the culture.
Yeah.
Right. No one else gets a say in that. You have the climate can change, and that's like the actual how our culture is being personified in the world. The difference between your climate and culture is the culture gap. But not to get too deep in here, right? But I think as an owner, if I say these numbers are important, I need to be able to build that into the culture. These are the things that we have to follow. These are the no-fail things. But part of your culture can also be like, if I'm burning the team out because of these things, they need to be comfortable being able to raise their hand and say, hey, like this is a little much. And I think a lot of times people have been burned by having bad bosses before, like not being able to actually speak their mind. And so it is hard to get this across, because even if you are the best boss, some new employee who has never had that experience before is going to be very timid and not tell you the thing that they need to. So it's really important that the culture is strong so that they get to see some other team member going to the boss saying, hey, we slow down. We're tired. We cannot finish this project on time. And I think when you're able to install that culture and you grow it and you foster it, it makes it much easier to be able to run the metrics at the same time that you have a strong team. And I think the only true competitive advantage that a lot of agencies have these days, any company probably has, is your culture. Because with AI, I can build the same tools that you're using. I can copy that next week. It took you 6 months to figure it out. Speed isn't as much of a differentiator now because we can all do things very fast. Even expertise on some level, because we have access to AI, I can learn from greats very quickly and shortcut some of that expertise. So it's hard to show, but it's really hard to build a strong culture because it's very human centric. It requires everyone on the team doing it. And your culture includes how fast are we moving? How does the team operate? How do we view expertise and quality and all of these things? But it also includes your perspective, right? How do we see the world? Because that's what brings the team together. Seth Godin has people like us do things like this as the definition of culture.
Right.
And it's great because that's exactly it. And so when you find clients who like what they're seeing, like they agree with your perspective, they want to be part of that, they get to experience culture, and that's what gets them to stay and hang out.
Oh, it's great.
Hopefully that was valuable for some.
It's super valuable because I feel the same way, is that if you don't pick a direction, it's hard for people to follow you to the better place, right? And a better place for their business, better place for them being employees, all those different things. But you've got to pick a direction and go. But what I find is sometimes agency owners, they can be uncomfortable in that leadership position because they are great craftspeople and they got really good at the craft. And now all of a sudden they wake up and they've got 20 people, and their sense of self-worth is gone because they're not making the things anymore. They're not doing the craft anymore. They're managing and building the business. And those are things that people struggle with. And it doesn't matter who you are or where you are in the world. The idea of your identity being taken away by yourself because of this thing you did can be really impactful.
Yeah. One of the things that we do with that is a quad chart. Every great consultant has quad charts, right? It's the idea of taking everything that you either don't like, and the things you're good at, and things you're not good at. And so when you look at, as you're growing the company, the things you're not good at that you don't like, it's pretty easy to delegate those. You're like, well, why didn't I do this sooner? If you like it and you are good at it, you can keep it. You own the company. If that goes to your soul to be able to show up and just enjoy your work, why would you delegate that? Like, you don't have to. And I think the normal advice from people is, no, you got to delegate everything. You just got to run the business. But you build this business because you enjoy your craft. So like, just lean into that.
Yeah.
I think where a lot of agency owners do get stuck is they're the things that they like, but they're not good at. I promise you, your team is begging you to delegate those tasks. So delegate those, keep the ones that you are good at, and you'll be way better.
Yeah. And then again, it goes back to making a decision, because I've seen so many people where I've worked with them and they're like, I have to do this stuff because they don't get it. And I'm like, did they not get it, or did you not show them what good looks like?
Yeah.
And
that's a good point.
There's a difference between telling and showing people how to do a thing versus teaching them what good looks like, or and why that good is good, and what that reverberating, like the ripple effect of that good is, and how it impacts them and the company and all these different things. And I'd have bosses in the past that would be like, we need to do a thing like this. And then you'd be like, here's that thing. And they'd be like, no, I want a different thing. And it's okay. How about this? And then, no, I want a different thing. Of course, early on in my career, I was like, oh, it's obviously me. Like, I'm just not getting it. But as I got more gray hair, I started realizing, no, a big part of it was that they couldn't describe what they wanted. They couldn't describe what good looked like. And I just had to keep showing up until they saw something they liked. And when I became a business owner, that was something that really stuck with me, is that when I asked for people to do things or delegated things, and they came back and it didn't look or sound or feel or taste or whatever the way I thought it would, I spent time figuring out, like, am I explaining myself correctly? Am I giving them enough information to do the right type of work? And I think, again, it goes all the way back to what we started with, was talking about positioning and who you're going after. Because if you have a good, strong sense of your position, it's easier to determine what good looks like, right?
Yep. Yeah, actually, that is a strong enough point that I want to echo it. I don't think a lot of agency owners appreciate this. There's a difference between what done looks like and what good looks like.
Right.
And just saying, this is done. You can have a swipe file of like decent examples of all the landing pages you've worked on. What's the process? Like, if you get into that, this is what good looks like. We're going to go through these. You're doing these things. Like, let me talk you through this stuff. Your team operates on another level. And they know what good looks like. And so that's something that needs to be more like out there, the agency world. Like, it needs to be a common business practice.
Yeah, because it trickles down to what your clients say, I think, and how you can determine whether a client's a good fit or not, too. Because if your sense of what good looks like fits with your clients, too, easy, right? And it goes back to, like I said, about the positioning, because you want to be working with people, because people always say, I want to work with people I want to work with, or whatever. And okay, what does that actually mean? And I think it's as simple sometimes as you both understand what good looks like is the same for both of you. And I have that happen all the time with clients I work with today. It's, here's this thing, and they're like, yeah, I like this, but I want to do this and this. And I'm like, oh, those are really good ideas. We should do that. Let's tweak those things. And then it's more like a partnership. There's a lot more trust. It's just a much more enjoyable relationship than, let's look at the numbers. Like, how many hits did we get on our pay-per-clicks this month? Did you do a good job or not? And it's a mess. It can unravel really quickly if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing. So, Chris, as you're working with these folks, is there anything that you're really hoping to stress going into next year? What's some of your big advice that you want people to be focused on going into 2026? If you were to talk to just an entrepreneur, let alone somebody who runs a digital agency, if they were running a service-based business, what are the tea leaves telling you for 2026?
Yeah, so this is going to sound very self-serving. but you need a strong positioning statement. If you don't have a strong position in the market, I think you're screwed in the upcoming years. And that's only because there are fewer and fewer ways to differentiate yourself.
Yeah.
The market, there's something called service saturation, where the market is just, it has never been easier to start an agency. And I think that's because there's a democratization of expertise, where we had this democratization of knowledge, right? Everybody started to learn how to read. And now all of a sudden, I don't have to go to my priest to be able to translate the Bible and like connect to God, right? And so everyone starts learning to read. Everyone starts getting smarter and building new inventions and doing all this stuff. The same thing is now happening with expertise, where it's like, it's become easier for someone to go become an expert. And now we're hitting like the maturity of that, where it's like, I can very quickly develop, maybe not be the expert, because the bar is always going up, right? For who's the most expert, I guess. It's become easier for someone to shortcut that and move up very quickly. So 2 dudes can grab their laptops, go sit in one of their mom's basements, and they're like, we're agency owners.
We're a social media agency.
And now you're competing with them. Because so many of them are coming up, everyone knows you need to niche, right? You need to find a target audience. And so I can say I work with manufacturing companies. It's not good enough anymore. I work for textile manufacturing companies. A little better, right? I work with design engineers at textile manufacturing. So now we're talking. If you can focus on the problem that they have and say, I solve that, it's even better. But even there, someone can come in and say, I do that exact same thing for those same people. And so it's okay, so why would I choose you over them? And it's going to come down to your position, right? How do I view the world? What is my point of view on this? And someone can't just copy that, because like we said, it comes down to your culture, right? Yeah. It's like, it's embedded in everything you're doing. It's your strategy. And so someone can't just replicate that because they don't have the team you do. They don't have the time to actually build that up the way you do. So they're almost forced to take a different perspective. And so if you want the people who like agree with you and they see the world the way you do, which are going to be the better clients anyways for you. Yep. If you really want to win them over, it's like, just be outward about your point of view. Now talk about the problem that you solve for them. And I promise you, you will get more business than if you were to just make some claim that this is what we believe, but never actually like back it up with everything else within your business.
Yeah. So, and you'll be in business a lot longer. But as I mentioned before, that UX agency, that's about 7 people. All they do is healthcare. So they don't try to do anything else. That's it. That's all and that's where they've been for 20 years. And again, that's, as they compound that expertise, they grow and grow in why you should choose them over other people. I'm sure you've seen it before. I've coached a lot of agencies, especially this year. We're in this space, but we really want to move into this space. How does that lift and shift have to happen? It can be really challenging to do if you don't try to start out in that spot. It's not impossible to shift industries, but to your point, if you've been doing this for a decade here and you're finding that wasn't a good choice, maybe that sector is not doing as well anymore due to the social economic climate, and you need to move to somewhere else. You've got to be as sharp as you were there as you move over here. It doesn't change just because you're changing. The activities don't change. It's, again, are you positioned in the right way? I think that's truly. All right, Chris, I could talk to you all day, but we'll cut it short here. And you'll come back on the show many times because you and I have got lots to cover. So, Chris, if I want to get in touch with you, if I want to reach out and see more about the programs you offer, the services you do, where do I go?
Yeah, so check out dynamicagencyos.com for everything that I offer. I'd actually recommend first, just dynamicagency.community. We've got a growing community that's similar to yours, except for agencies specifically. It's just like, I'm looking to make a ton of money. We just want to be able to provide access to other coaches and different people like that. But otherwise, LinkedIn, you can find me and good chat anytime.
That's great. Chris, again, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Always chatting shop is a lot of fun, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. All right, everyone, thanks for taking the time to join me. I really appreciate it. You can check out Chris's info in the links below in the description. You won't be sad that you did, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, we'd love it if you left a review on iTunes or Spotify. It makes a big difference. And be sure to check out schmidtconsulting.group for more ideas and insights. Remember, every big dream starts with a single step. Keep moving forward, stay curious, and don't forget, we're rooting for you. See you next time.